Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Second City podcast with me, Callum Byrne.
And me, Daniel Sketchley.
We've got another international break edition because the international breaks are never ending and there's so many of them at the moment. So we're going to do something slightly different this week, and then we'll sort of talk about this weekend's games that are coming up, probably at the end of the pod as well. But Dan, how are you? Are you enjoying the international break?
I'm fine, thank you. I'm very well. No is my answer. But that's not because I don't hate the international. Oh, I've always said like these international breaks are pretty boring, and there's nothing really of any real interest. But it's okay so long as the tournaments are good. That's all that matters. It is okay to sacrifice boring qualifiers, boring friendlies to get to the real juice, which is like the Euros and the World Cup and whatever. Don't get me wrong, it's frustrating, but this international break as well also fell on my weekend in work, so I wouldn't have been able to watch any football anyway. So it being an international break kind of worked out quite nicely.
Well, obviously, Blues were one of the games that was postponed, so would you have been at home or away?
We would have been at home, so it's actually benefited me because I wouldn't have been able to have gone. So I'm actually quite glad in a way. And at least there's been some interest with the whole Carsley thing, a bit of a story there at least. But yeah, how about you? How's your international break going?
I mean, I think I would have preferred the international break to be next week rather than this week,
Yeah,
just because I'm away next week. So,
yeah,
and we're both going away in a couple of weeks as well. And we've got all sorts of football going on then, but we'll touch on that, I assume, in a couple of weeks. Um,
yeah.
but yeah,
Sweet.
we talked about the break being okay for us, so I'm okay.
Yeah, whatever. It is what it is, and I think you do. Even though we run a football podcast, having a little break from just a little breather makes it feel extra special when it comes back. So it's why I'm kind of like the whole they're trying to put through like the Club World Cup and all that stuff for like is that next summer or the summer after? And it must be
Is
next
it?
summer.
Yeah, I
It
don't
must
know.
be because it'll be the International World Cup the following year. Um, it's like no, you can have some downtime, and that
Yeah.
makes it feel special when it comes back.
I guess that's
Um,
a better place for the Club World Cup rather than being slap bang over Christmas in the middle of the season for the
they should just
European
get rid of
teams
it.
anyway. But yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, just get rid of it. Anyway, yeah, Cal touched on there. We're actually going to do, obviously, because there wasn't really any games this weekend for us to talk about in terms of Midlands and Blues and Villa. We're going to do something a little bit different. We're going to do this week what we call the regardless 11. So, our top, we've done a few of these like 11 rankings, like for Blues and Villa. We did like best loan 11s, worst January signing 11s, and so on.
Top five Irish players, I think, was one that we did, and
Oh, yeah, yeah, sure. Yeah, we did that for St. Patrick's Day. So the regardless 11, Cal, are you able to explain the regardless 11 or would you like me to? Because it is pretty cool when you get in when we this was my idea. So if this episode
yeah.
dies on its ass, it's my fault. Sure.
Yeah, so it's going to be 11 players, 11 of the best ever footballers of their whole career, regardless of who they actually played for, as long as they've made at least one appearance for,
Yes.
in Dan's case, Birmingham City, and my case, Aston Villa.
Yeah, so it is a pretty cool idea. And there may be some players on the list who would get into your best Villa 11 anyway, or may have got into my best Blues 11 anyway. But the point being, you're not just judging them on that. If I was doing a best Blues 11 of my lifetime, it would be players, I'd be judging it all on their time at Blues. But the idea with this is they could have been terrible for Blues, but if they had a great career on the whole, they may have had one loan appearance when they were a teenager at Blues and gone on to achieve great things. So they'd be in your regardless 11. So it's regardless of how good they actually were at Blues, but judging their career as a whole, or in your case, Villa. So it should be pretty interesting. Hopefully people get the gist of it. But we'll get onto
I
that in a
think it'll
bit.
make sense as we start to go through it. Because I
Yeah,
think when you
exactly.
pitched it to me originally, I was like, isn't that just going to end up being my best Villa 11? But it actually isn't as I
Sure.
started to go through it.
Especially for obviously for Blues, we've had some obviously like we've kind of had a rougher in our lifetime a rougher period than you have. So I didn't know how it'd be interesting to see like a comparison between the two lists and how close yours is to your best Villa 11 anyway, for example. But we'll get onto all that in a bit, as well as some housekeeping and previewing the weekend's games when it comes back. But how should we start? What we always do with what we're wearing.
Yeah. You're wearing a yellow shirt again, Dan.
I am, but for those watching on YouTube, I'm not wearing that one. That was the one I wore last week,
Yeah.
with the auto windscreens on the back in the middle. Do you want to guess mine first then, Cal? Because yes, it is yellow again. It's pretty similar.
Oh, look at that sponsor. Oh man,
Yeah.
phones for you. You know what? I that's
Yeah, so
like
it's a
when you think back on like classic sponsors that you just associate with clubs. Phones for you is definitely and maybe Flybe are the two that I
oh yeah.
associate with Birmingham City in the same way like the O2 or the
Yeah,
JVC with Arsenal, or I guess for us it'd be like the Muller
yeah,
yogurt.
sure.
Um, so I think
Yeah.
it's
But
very,
yeah,
very yeah, it's very similar in terms of
for those
uh,
listening, it's the kind of differences to the one I wore last week were it's not a centered up badge. It's that's on the left hand side on the left, yeah, on the left, and then Le Coq Sportif's logo's on the right in like a triangle. It's got a collar. It's also got a zip under the collar, which is kind of
ooh,
pretty.
Zips
Um,
a rogue one.
yeah, and then yes, the big block phones for you in the middle. It is a beautiful kit. I'm just gonna say, classic blues. Again, shout out to Pierce for giving me this one. I believe it's an original. But what year is
Yeah.
it, Cal?
I think it's very, very close to the one you wore last week, just by the badge is the same. It's the same kit make. The two shirts look very similar. I'm trying to remember what did we say last week's was? Was it? I reckon this is somewhere around like 2000, 2000. No, but phones for you would be a bit later than that. 0203.
Very close. You're a year out. It's
Yeah.
0102. Last week
Yeah.
was 2000, 2001. This is 2001, 2002. So it was the exact following season. So two absolute bangers back to back, classic yellow blues away. And this was the year we got promoted to the Premier League for the first time. We'd been out of the top division for 16 years. And yeah, this was the one we wore at the Millennium Stadium. Not this year exactly, but it was this season where we won at the Millennium Stadium, beat Norwich on penalties. Darren Carter scoring the winning penalty, obviously. Um, and that was so Trevor Francis was the manager until about I think it was about the November or December, and he left, and Steve Bruce came in, and we had a pretty meteoric rise from mid-table into the playoffs. Famously beat Millwall in the semi-final, which I believe was in this kit. I think we were going out due to away goals, I think, if I've got it right. And then Stone John scored in the 91st minute or something to send us through to Cardiff where we beat Norwich. As I say, beautiful kit, and it kind of ended a run of seasons where we'd finished fifth. We also finished fifth this season, but this was the one where we actually got into the playoffs, got to the final, and won it, and obviously led to quite a prosperous, on the whole, quite a prosperous decade really for Blues. Tommy Mooney was the top scorer this year. Some other great players that played for us: Martin Granger, Jeff Horsfield, Paul Devlin. Um, so yeah, kind of in terms of memories before my time, I don't remember this season, but yeah, love it, absolutely love it.
Great kit. Great kit indeed.
Yeah.
Um, I've gone maybe a bit more modern.
Yeah, you say that. I think it's probably somewhere in between then and now. So it's Under Armour, is it? Is that the Under Armour logo?
Under Armour Unibet sponsor. I don't know if you can quite see. There's like a line detailing,
Bit of a
like
pattern, yeah.
sort of embossed into the kit. Very similar. I think it was like a modern remake of this Reebok shirt
Hmm,
behind me. You can't really see the imprinted line on there, but
sure.
um, if it helps at all, Dan, the away kit from this season is also behind me, which is this
Oh,
lovely
okay.
black
Ah, that does
number.
help. That does
Yeah,
help. Because you wore that at St Andrews.
yeah, for some reason.
Yeah, which was odd. And that away kit is black with like a sort of the claret going
It's
across.
like a claret
Um,
checkerboard across like your sort of
yeah, a bit of
chest
an odd,
area.
yeah, a bit odd placing in my opinion. That helps because that means it would have been championship era. So you're talking late noughties. I would have guessed a lot earlier actually. I would have guessed maybe 2012-ish. But that I think must be 20. Oh, what years did you play Blues? It'd be 2017, 18 home.
Yes, yes, it is.
Yeah.
17, 18 home. Yeah, I don't know why we wore the. I like the black shirt, although it's. I don't know why we wore it at St Andrews. It just
Mm,
is a bit of a weird one. It's probably that's probably that kit's most famous thing it ever did was
mm.
being worn at St Andrews because it was
I
just a
don't
real standout.
I don't mind it so much. Like we wore our yellow away kit at Villa Park. Was it the last time? It must have been the last time we played
That
there.
would have been in 18, 19 the following year.
It was when Duke scored. I don't mind that so much because I think blues yellow is very like is an iconic blues thing. I wouldn't say black is for you necessarily, so I thought that was a little bit odd. It would have been just more of a fit for you to wear your home shirt, or maybe if you have if Villa fans associate a different colour has been famously away for them, maybe it would have made sense. But yeah, I found it hard as well.
Yeah, I think I prefer the derbies when it's the two home shirts. There's just
Yeah. Looks
something
proper.
about, yeah, and the proper derbies do that as well
Yeah.
because obviously the two colours aren't going to clash
Well,
because
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
the derbies. But anyway, yeah, so this would have been from Steve Bruce's full season in charge of Aston Villa. Would have been our last year at university as well. So
Yeah, it would have been.
great times. Um, we obviously this was from the 2-0 victory against Birmingham City at Villa Park when Conor Hourihane scored an absolute worldie past David Stockdale. Sheegan Doy was sent off. Carl Jenkinson and John Terry both played. Um, it was,
Yeah.
you look back at that game and some of the players that were involved, and it is a bit crazy,
Oh, yeah, yeah, definitely.
Um, but yeah, this so we lost the playoff final in this kit against Fulham. Absolutely heartbreaking day. Um, and very much the end of that season, it felt like everything was starting to fall apart. Maybe underachieved a little bit this season, even though we did make it to the playoff final. We were obviously beaten to automatic promotion by that incredible Wolves team that Nuno assembled with Ruben Neves and Diogo Jota amongst a handful, and John Ruddy amongst a handful of notable names. And then Neil Warnock's Cardiff also.
Oh no, yeah, that is a
Yeah, it
strange
was
one.
Neil Warnock's Cardiff. I mean, they were great that year,
It was. You
but
think though about like you're talking about like 2017, 18. It doesn't to me it doesn't feel like that long ago. Like, but obviously in the grand scheme of history, it obviously is not. But you think like Neil Warnock's Cardiff finished second, like that feels like that sounds like a really long time ago.
yeah, it does.
Um, yeah.
Yeah, in fact, two Birmingham City goalkeepers who you had last season were both part of that automatic promotion in Etheridge
Oh,
and
of course,
Ruddy.
yeah. Oh, that's a good
Um,
start. Yeah, of course.
yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Um, But yeah, we did beat Cardiff at Villa Park. Jack Grealish scored an absolutely phenomenal volley in this kit. Another memory that stands out is when Robert Snodgrass scored the only goal in a 1-0 win away at Sheffield United. Absolutely incredible goal. Daniel Mann's commentary for that goal as well, if you can dig it out, is sensational. Um, but yeah, just felt like we underachieved a little bit. Didn't we had I think we started the season quite badly. I definitely remember us losing to Cardiff in like the second or third game of the season. We got absolutely battered. And then I think we ended the season quite badly. We lost on the last day away at Millwall when I think we weren't going to move up and we weren't going to go down. But we had a really great run in the spring, coming out of Christmas and into the new year. We went on a really long winning streak that kind of propelled us into a really strong position in the playoffs. Scott Hogan, all of a sudden, who'd really struggled for form at Aston Villa, just found a way. He was just scoring week in, week out. Um, and I think he scored in like 5 games in a row, something like that. And then I think the blank came in the second City derby. Notable players that wore the shirt. Albert Adoma was our player of the season in this shirt. We had because had striker issues with Codger being injured and Hogan being Hogan. In the early part of the season, he might have been injured as well because Keenan Davis made his debut in this shirt, and yeah, he had a great game at home to Norwich when Conor Hourihane scored a hat trick and we won 4-1. Um, but yeah, nice shirt. Probably not one of the best we've ever had, but our Under Armour shirts were probably quite underrated anyway. The other home shirt they did from the year before is a beaut.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Awesome. Shall we move on then to regardless 11, Cal? So we explained it earlier.
yeah,
Shall we get into it then? And hopefully people will get the gist of it as we go, sort of. I don't know, should we do so what like we'll do both our back fives, then do both our midfields, then do our attackers, if that
yeah.
sounds good to you.
What formation have you gone for? Just out of
I've
interest.
just gone for a 4-4-2, is what
Oh,
I've gone for.
okay. So I've gone for a four
Yeah.
three three.
Okay, interesting. Do you want to start? Because my team is good. It's cool. It's been
Yeah.
interesting. I've got loads of honorable mentions as well. My
Yeah.
team is good, but the defense is unquestionably the worst part. Um, so, so I think I'm hoping your defense is better. I have a feeling you may have mentioned someone already today who is going to be in your regardless
Yeah.
11.
Well, we'll
So I
see.
think I think that may be a better way of getting it across if we maybe start with you, because I think you'll probably have a better back line than me.
Yeah. Shall I list the 5 players and then we'll go into a bit of detail?
Sure. Although I'm gonna write down who I think your goalkeeper is.
Oh, okay. Because I'll give you an honourable mention who initially was like, oh, I could throw this guy in. He's not
Should we
good.
just should we just
Huh?
clarify as well? It's mainly going to be like our lifetime. We said it's our lifetime unless
Yes.
there's a really obvious example, because otherwise I'd have like Trevor Francis and Kenny Burns, who obviously were amazing at Blues, but went on to win like the European Cup with Nottingham Forest. But that would kind of miss the point of it, I feel like. So we're going to keep it mainly like our lifetime.
Yeah, I think my 11 is our lifetime, so there is
Mine
no
is as well, yeah.
There's no Paul McGrath. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So in goal, Peter Schmeichel.
Yes, I got it. Yes, I called it straight
Mm.
away. Peter Schmeichel. Yeah.
Right back, Kyle Walker. Centre backs, Gary Cahill and John Terry. And left back, weirdly, and I think I've mentioned this before when we've done 11s, our history of left backs isn't great. So I've
No,
gone for
too
Ashley
soon.
Young as a left
Okay.
back.
Yeah, that's fair.
So yeah, so Peter Schmeichel, I mean, there was some good honourable mentions. I thought Scott Carson won the treble at Manchester City and the Champions League at Liverpool without actually playing in any of the
Yeah,
finals. So
yeah,
I wondered if
yeah. That is a good one. Yeah, that's a
so
good one actually.
he maybe could have made the list. Emmy Martinez as well, obviously, was very unlucky to make this list and arguably might in the future be the person to
In
be the
time, yeah,
goalkeeper. Yeah. Obviously he's a World Cup winner, two-time Copa America winner, Ballon d'Or nominee, and won the Ashen Trophy last year. But Peter Schmeichel obviously won 15 trophies in 8 years at Man United. He captained them in the 1999 Champions League victory, and he won the Euros with Denmark in 1992. I think he only had one season at Villa, but he did score a goal.
Oh,
So
I think I've seen it actually. Yeah, that
I
does
think
ring
he
a bell.
scored like I think he scored a couple of goals in his career, Peter
He did,
Schmeichel.
yeah, he did. Yeah,
Um, Carl Walker, I'll touch on very briefly because in the last 11 we did a couple of episodes ago in the lone 11, he obviously made this list. He's won everything in English football with Manchester City. He won the treble, obviously, the Club World Cup that we talked about earlier. Centre backs, there was a couple. There's a John Terry's the standout, obviously, and he was
yeah,
brilliant the season he was with us, but he obviously was a Champions League and Premier League. I think he won it again. He won everything with Chelsea that there is to
yeah.
win in English football.
I think he's
Nothing.
like to interrupt. I think he's like the definitive example of this because I
Yeah,
assume he wouldn't be in a your best Villa 11 as good as he was for you.
probably not.
But he'd
Probably not.
walk into
But
this. He'd be the first,
yeah,
like yeah,
yeah, absolutely. Obviously had a great career at Chelsea, and that. But I think what was quite nice as well is he was really good for us, and we were disappointed that he didn't then stay on for the promotion season the year after, probably because of his wages. Um, but he then did come back as a coach as well, and was a key part of Dean Smith's coaching regime at Aston Villa. And then when he left in the summer of 2021 along with Dean Smith's one of Dean Smith's assistants, Richard O'Kelly. That all started to fall apart. But he did work with Dean Smith again when he went to Leicester for that short stint to try and keep them up. Gary Cahill, I was really tempted to put Olaf Melberg in there, and I think there's a case that you could throw him in instead, or Martin Larsson. I absolutely loved Martin Larsson when he used to play for us. Um, but I went with Gary Cahill. He came up through our academy, scored an unreal bicycle kick in the second City derby, and then also
interesting.
captained
Sorry, Callum.
Chelsea to a Premier League title.
Yeah, but was he the captain when they won the Champions League as well?
Nobody did play.
Because Terry was suspended, wasn't
I don't think he would have been the captain.
he? It might have been
Maybe
Lampard or someone.
Drogba or Lampard would have been the
Yeah,
captain, you'd
yeah, of
think.
course. Yeah, of course.
But yeah,
Interesting because both of them centre backs obviously were strongly linked to Blues at different points in their career as well, which is quite interesting.
and they were a centre back pairing at Chelsea. They
Yeah,
were,
and for England, I assume as well. Played together for England.
they might have done, but Terry
Mm.
retired. Terry got kicked out of the
True.
England setup under Capello, so they probably
Yeah,
didn't actually.
true, true.
So, and then left back, I've gone for Ashley Young. Obviously, Ashley Young's best days were 100% as a left winger. It's at Aston Villa and in his early years at Manchester United. Um, Still going now, as and he switches between left back and right back. When he rejoined us, he was originally used as a left back, and then Unai Emery converted him into a right back. I know Steven Gerrard tried it a couple of times, but it was a disaster. And now he's gone to Sean Dyche's Everton. He's kind of flicked between the two, and he's now a left back most of the time now. So, um, but But yeah, he was a proper in his younger days in the late 2000s, early 2010s. He was a very skillful, very fast, brilliant player. Um, but completes the the base of the defense quite nicely. Can you top it, Dan?
No, that so like that. I hope that illustrates like the concept because like a back five of Schmeichel, Kyle Walker, Gary Cahill, John Terry, and Ashley Young is pretty. That's pretty amazing. Like in terms of a back five, and they did all play for Villa, so they can be eligible for this team. As I mentioned, my defense is pretty shocking.
So you're going to tell me they all haven't won the Champions League like mine?
No, tell a lie. The keeper I'm very happy with, and then there is the rest. The rest are
Mm.
ones that a lot of them had really poor times at Blues and went on to maybe do, or before Blues did better things. But so here's my back five. In goal is again one I really like, Joe Hart in goal. Um, my back four. I wonder how many of these names you remember. Right back, Steve Finnan. Right
Oh,
back.
Liverpool.
Yeah, for Liverpool.
Yeah,
And then my centre backs are Johan Joru and
yeah.
uh, Mario Melchiot
Yeah.
and Dan Burn at left back, which I think that's allowed. He plays at left back for Newcastle sometimes. I know
He
that
played
is
at left back for Brighton.
exactly. My team does get better, I promise. Um, but Joe Hart was, I think, a natural choice, and he would possibly be in a best Blues 11 I'd have it anyway, although I'd maybe angle slightly more towards Ben Foster just because he won the cup. But Joe Hart was unreal for Blues. It was on
Uh,
loan in.
Joe Hart was better than Ben Foster, so. But in your
It's
best Blues 11 is different. But
sure, yeah.
yeah,
Oh
Joe
yeah, like
Hart was.
career-wise, Hart,
Yeah,
yeah, definitely achieved more. Um, And yeah, so he came on loan from Man City when he was very young in 09-10. We ended up finishing ninth, having just been promoted from the Championship. And it really triggered like just an amazing career. And I feel like he got unfairly like maligned a bit as he got older, Joe Hart. I didn't think it was. He
the
became a
drop off
punchline.
for him was quite incredible. All
It
off the back
was.
of Euro 2016.
Yeah, it was. But he was at his peak. He was very good, and I think people
Yeah,
forget that. I think he was
yeah.
unlucky that goalkeeping kind of changed so much in his career as he got older and so on, and what was required of a keeper. But him, at the back of his time at Blues, he then got into the 2010 South Africa World Cup squad for England, which I think people forget. He didn't play, but he still got in. And he went on to make 75 appearances for England. He went to Euro 2012, World Cup 2014, Euro 2016. Um, and at Man
Probably
City, he
should
was,
have been number 1 in 2010, if we're being
yeah,
honest.
oh, 100%, absolutely. And at Man City, he went on to win two Premier Leagues, an FA Cup, and a League Cup. So he had a really great career, and I think people forget that. Right back, Steve Finnan, yeah, it was a weird one. He played for us, I believe, in the late 90s, I think. I'll have to double check that, but he
Oh,
didn't
so
play.
pre-Liverpool.
Yeah, so he was very young when he was at Blues. Let me just double check that. But he was one. He went on to play, I think it was 53 games he played for the Republic of Ireland, and he went to the World Cup in South Korea as well. Yeah, 95, 96. He played 15 times for Blues, scored one goal as a permanent signing, that's right. But yeah, and it was later on he went to Liverpool and he was there from 2003 to 2008, I think it was, and he made 145 appearances for them, and he was like their mainstay right back for years, really. Um, I considered putting Stephen Carr in because obviously for Blues he'd 100% be my Blues best right back, 100%. But yeah, Steve Finn, he had a really good career. I think people forget that, and yeah, he did briefly have a spell at Blues. Um, Onto my centre backs, kind of got to justify these ones a bit more. Mario Melchiot was not very good for Blues. He was with us for 2 years, from 2004 to 2006, and we got relegated in the second one of those. He left. I think he got booed in one game by the Blues fans, I remember. Um, but before his time at Blues, he was actually a really solid centre back. We got him from Chelsea, where he played 130 times, and they got him from Ajax, where he played over 70 times. And in the noughties, he actually played over 20 times for the Dutch national team. So if you were just like trying to sell on paper someone's career, Mario Milkett would be a very natural fit. He's nowhere near my best Blues centre backs.
I'm
Nowhere near.
pretty sure I had his Birmingham City match attack card.
Was he a one star?
Oh, probably.
One or a two anyway. But he's very similar to my other centre back, Johan Joru, who like I wouldn't say Melchiot was terrible for Blues. He got terrible at Blues, but like his first year he was okay. Johan Joru was always bad for Blues, pretty much. I think we had him on loan from Arsenal in 07-08. We also got relegated this year. But after that, he just went on to have this bizarre career. He became an Arsenal. He was at Arsenal until that 2014, I think it was. Played nearly 90 times for them. And alongside that, he became a mainstay for the Swiss national team.
Yeah.
Played nearly 80 times for them. He went to three World Cups and two Euros. And it was just weird seeing him grow into this like name because I just remembered him. And granted, he was very young when he was at Blues. I think he was about 20. But yeah, that was just weird. Like Melchiot and Juru never got going at Blues really, and went on to have these great careers. And then my other left back again is someone who wasn't my left back is someone who wasn't very good for Blues is Dan Burn. And similar to Melchiot and Juru, I never could have guessed he'd go on to have this
Mm.
career. Like he was on loan. No, yeah, he was on loan with us. Sorry, in 2013-14 under Lee Clark, and he went on to obviously. I think did he go to? He went to a couple of clubs. But he was at Brighton, and then he went
I
to
think Brighton got him from Wigan.
Newcastle. Yes, yes, that's right. And at Newcastle, he's played nearly 100 times for them. It feels like he gets linked to it as they've developed into this, like, obviously soon to be superpower or whatever. Scored against PSG in the Champions League. I just find it really mad. He was more of a centre back for Blues as well. But yeah, so my defense is not what I'm madly proud of. But if you looked at their careers as a whole, the only other left backs really that we've had would be like, obviously, we had like Ridgewell, David Murphy, Pedersen, like, some good players there, but obviously never hit the heights that Burn is hitting at the minute. So yeah, that's my back five: Joe Hart, Steve Finnan, Mario Melchiot, Johan Juru, and Dan Burn. The team does get better, I promise.
Right, let's get on to the midfield then. So you've got an extra player than me in this section, but so at the base of defensive midfield, I've gone for another former academy product of Aston Villa, Gareth Barry. Obviously was part of that start of that amazing Martin O'Neill era at Aston Villa as well, where we oh so close, almost qualified for the Champions League. Did then go on to Manchester City, almost went to Liverpool. Rafa Benitez was trying to tap him up. And you might remember, Dan, do you remember Patrick Berger at all?
I don't. That doesn't ring a bell.
No. Used to play for Portsmouth, but he was a Martin O'Neill signing. I think he was a Martin O'Neill signing. And anyway, when the Benitez and Liverpool were trying to tap up Gareth Barry, he came out or was asked at some point whether he think he should go, and he was like, "Yes, he should go to Liverpool." Never played for us ever again after saying that. Gareth Barry obviously went on to win the Premier League with Manchester City. Would have won at least a League Cup as well. Then had a really good career as well, where he was at Everton for a few years after that. And then went to West Bromwich Albion, did steal a taxi on a night out under Alan Pardew the year they got relegated. Um, yeah, but he's the first player on this list that didn't win the Champions League for us, but didn't for us,
For
didn't win the
you.
Champions League. Yeah,
Sure.
believe it or not, he didn't win the Champions League with Aston Villa either.
No.
But yeah, I think he's got the record for the most Premier League
Yeah.
appearances as
Is
well.
it most appearances and most yellow cards, is it? Or something like that?
Yes,
Definitely most appearances, yeah.
something like that. A proper Premier League great, anyway.
Mm.
His And so then onto our two centre mids. Robert Pires is the first one.
Yeah.
Um, when he came to Aston Villa, he wasn't long off retirement. He might have
Yeah.
retired after his 6 month spell with Aston Villa. He was really disappointed not to get given a longer contract after his short stint with us. I think he scored one goal, which was against Blackburn in the FA Cup, which is really great. A really great volley, and all the headlines from back then where Pires rolls back the years because he was almost 40 by the time he came and arrived at Villa when Gerard Houllier was the manager. So this would have been like 2011. But obviously, he also is a Premier League great. Was invincible when Arsenal won the league under Arsene Wenger. Was such a huge part of that team. Should have won the Champions League in
2006.
2006.
Yeah.
Yeah,
When they lost to Barcelona, yeah.
yeah, when they had the red card. Yeah, we're a goal up and lost 2-1. But yeah, Robert Perez was that Arsenal team I really loved when we were growing up as kids. I remember loving Thierry Henry and Robert Perez. There were two of like my footballing idols growing up that didn't play for Aston Villa. So again, it's kind of nice when like sometimes your heroes do come and join you. I've spoken about like Robbie Keane and Shay Given in the past. Um, and I remember I didn't speak to him, but I saw him at the 2015 FA Cup final because he was doing some commentary work for Arsenal TV, I think it was. I can't believe he wasn't
Oh,
supporting Aston Villa. It was a
shocking.
disgrace.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
His one goal in the FA Cup, he should have been supporting us. Anyway, third midfielder, maybe playing slightly out of position, but it's okay. We're playing a more advanced role, is Felipe Coutinho.
Oh yeah.
Obviously, still contracted to Aston Villa, believe it or
Mhm.
not. I think he's in Brazil. He's gone back to Brazil. Yeah, a really, really, really good player, and maybe a bit similar to Joe Hart. The drop off was quite fast and kind of out of nowhere. Um, Obviously, he came up through the ranks in Brazil at Vasco, and then went to Inter Milan, where he won the Supercoppa Italia in 2010. Went to Liverpool, didn't really win anything at Liverpool. Was the runner-up in the League Cup and the Europa League in the same season, which would have been 15, 16. That might
Yeah.
have been Klopp's
It was.
first
It was.
year,
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was.
or
Yeah.
like first half
He came
season.
in like part way through. Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
um, and was absolutely fantastic for Liverpool. Was a huge part of that team that Jurgen Klopp was building. But then got his dream move to Barcelona. What was it, 120 million? And at Barcelona, he went on to win La Liga twice. He won the Copa del Rey once, and the Super Cup, the Super Cup in Spain as well. But maybe after his first year, you something was didn't seem right, and they didn't, the Spanish fans in at Barcelona didn't really warm to him. And anyway, he got shipped out on loan on was it a two? I think it was a 2-year loan along with James Rodriguez from Real Madrid, so for the other El Clasico team. They both ended up at Bayern Munich
Mm.
and on loan, where he won the Champions League, the Bundesliga, and the DFB Pokal, did the treble in his loan spell, and
Yeah.
famously scored twice for Bayern Munich against Barcelona while on loan for them in the Champions League when they won 8-2. Um,
Crazy.
yeah, absolutely mad. He was also a Copa America winner in 2019 as well with Brazil. Um, but yeah, after ended up at Aston Villa, had a really positive loan spell, and his permanent deal hasn't quite gone to plan. Can't stay fit, always injured, on too much money. But then got shipped out to, I think he got shipped out in Qatar last year, and now he's gone back to Brazil. So, um, at his best, world class, but maybe wasn't there for that many years.
Yeah,
So
he
that's
scored
my
that.
midfield three.
He scored that great goal against Man City for you, didn't he? But other than that, I feel like he
Yeah.
hasn't really, didn't really
Yes.
ever
Yeah.
get
Yeah.
going. It was on that list the day they won the league, wasn't it?
Yeah. It
Um,
was. Don't remind me I was there.
I feel like other than that, he never really got going. Cool. So that's your three: Barry, Pires, Coutinho.
Yeah.
Pretty great midfield. My midfield is a lot better than my defense, thankfully. Right wing, I've got someone who I'd be surprised if you knew this person ever played for Blues. Darren Anderton played for Blues in 2004 or 05. He came on loan. No, he was a permanent signing, sorry. He came for one season. And he was just riddled with injuries and like never really fit. He scored a great free kick against West Brom, and that was all he really had. No, tell a lie. He scored a winner at Anfield actually for us, although it was literally the most tap-in of tap-ins I've ever seen. It was like half a yard out, and he managed to score it. Um, so that's pretty great to be fair. But yeah, really good player. Like by all accounts, in the '90s, a little bit before kind of our time, before we'd have any memories of football. But he was like an England regular for years. He played. He was an ever present at Euro '96, and he was an ever present for the '98 World Cup as well, where he actually scored as well. And he made, I think it was like 300 appearances for Spurs or something mental, and we got him permanently from them. So he was very much at the tail end of his career. But if you looked at his career as a whole, he was actually a very good player and an interesting one to have said did play for Blues um, at one point. But yeah, an England regular for years and had a very good career on the whole. That's my two centre mids. So one of them is incredibly obvious and is like the first name on the team really, and that is obviously Jude Bellingham. Obviously was with Blues as a youngster, came through our academy and had a full season with us in the first team in 2019-20. He scored 4 goals. I was there for his first goal against Stoke, which was a great moment when he came off the bench and scored. And then I was there the following week when he scored away at Charlton in a 1-0 win. Unbelievable memories. So yeah, he was like this 16-year-old with all the confidence in the world. And as great as he was, if I was doing a Blues 11 of my lifetime, he probably wouldn't be in the 11. You know, I'd probably go to, for what they did at Blues, I'd go to players like Barry Ferguson, Lee Bowyer first. I'd probably look at them first. But there's no doubt he walks into this team. Obviously, he went to the most expensive teenager in history at the time, I think, when he went to Borussia Dortmund from Blues after one season. And obviously, what he's gone on to do with Madrid is just extraordinary. It's a real. He is the ultimate example of this list.
One of
Obviously,
the
he's how
favourites for the Ballon d'Or that whenever that's soon as well, isn't it? In the next couple
absolutely.
of months.
How old is he? Is he 20 or 21? He's already won a Champions League. Did Real Madrid win La Liga this year? I
I
think they
think
did.
so, yeah.
It's extraordinary. What a career he's had. He's the perfect example of this list, and yeah, he's welcome back in Birmingham anytime. So much so that we retired his shirt number in 2020. But yeah, what a player.
Still Tim Pot.
How dare you? No, it's come on, it's been justified now.
I don't know.
Our other centre mid though is Michael Carrick, who's obviously went on to achieve an awful lot in his career, but he played 2 games for Blues in '99, 2000, so a club legend there, Michael Carrick, when we were in the old First Division. Um, but obviously, what he went on to achieve in his career was unbelievable. He was part of that Ferguson's sort of Renaissance United team in the mid to late 2000s. Obviously, stayed with them until was it 20? Must have been mid 2010s before he retired. But he won 5 Premier Leagues. He won a Champions League. He won an FA Cup. He won 3 League Cups. He won a Europa League. He made 34 appearances for England. He went to the 2010 World Cup in South Africa, which yes was a disaster, but he was England still had a lot of great players at that point, and in those positions, and he was still picked to go. Yeah, a kind of a cool little footnote at the start of his career. He had a very brief spell at Blues as a teenager. So yeah, Michael Carrick. And then left wing, another one who is a definitive example of this list, and a bit like your Pires one, is Alexander Hleb, who is like just a perfect example of this list, who we had on loan from Barcelona. In terms of raw technical ability, maybe the best player like ever to play for Blue. Like
It's a
no,
big
in our lifetime, I
claim.
should say. Maybe not in our lifetime. Like sorry, in our lifetime, obviously you'd hear about like Trevor Francis and all them, but in our lifetime, arguably raw talent. I mean, he was like maybe another player I'm going to mention in a bit. Clever, on his at his peak, he was an unbelievable
Oh
player.
yeah. At Arsenal, he was unreal.
He was unreal at Arsenal. He was there for years. I think it was 6 seasons he had there, and then he went to Barcelona and he was part of Pep Guardiola's, you know, perfect football team by all accounts.
Total football.
Yeah, total football. Barca he won La Liga, Copa del Rey. He won the Champions League. So that would have been 2000. Must have been the 2009 Champions League if I remember correctly. I think. But yeah, he was an unbelievable player. But Barca, he never really. In fact, I say he won the Champions League. He might not have got a medal because he went out on loan that year as well. But he was a very technically talented footballer. If you want a bit more of a summary of him, I actually talked about him on our Never Fall in Love with a Lone Player episode
Yeah.
a few weeks ago. So I'd recommend going back and watching that because I've talked about him before. But it's a real shame at Blues that he was clearly in the later stages of his career and he was clearly never happy at Blues. He was this mercurially talented footballer who was in an Alex McLeish team that played long ball. And yes, we won the cup that year, but we ended up getting relegated. He was constantly in and out of the team with injuries and whatnot. And there was actually an interview with ESPN, I think it was, where he was being interviewed and he had a blue shirt behind him and he said something like, "Oh, it should be an Arsenal shirt there" or something. He clearly just was never happy at Blues, and that's a shame. Um, but an amazing stat. He didn't play in the League Cup final or in the don't think he played in the semi-finals or the quarter-final. But he definitely played in one of the earlier rounds, and I think he scored as well actually. But remarkable stat this that he technically won more trophies for Blues than he did for Arsenal because he was at Arsenal during that kind of void where they didn't win anything for quite a few years.
Yeah,
So that's a pretty
he
good
had
stat.
two runners-up medals at Arsenal in the 06-07 League Cup and the 05-06 Champions League, which we've
Yeah,
already spoken about. And he did
yeah,
win the Champions League at Barcelona, but in 08-09 when
yeah.
Barca did the treble.
Yes, that's right. That's right. Um, yeah, phenomenal player. Had to be in the team despite it never clicking really for him. At Blues, that's why he's in the regardless 11. So that's my midfield: Darren Anderton, Jude Bellingham, Michael Carrick, Alexander Hleb. So yeah.
Onto the attack. Right. Right winger, James Milner. Another player that's still playing.
Yeah.
I think he set a record this season for the most consecutive Premier League seasons played in, something like that. He's been going since the
Yeah, isn't it
very
like
early
21 or
2000s.
something?
Yeah, it's over 20
Yeah.
seasons, which is just
Mm.
ridiculous, really. Um, I won't talk too much about him because I spoke about him in the Never Fall in Love with a Lone Player. He was one of my cheats in that. And had a promising loan spell, would have been under David O'Leary, I think. And then signed permanently under Martin O'Neill, was absolutely fantastic. He was one of the best players in the Premier League while he was at Aston Villa. Another player who scored in a second City derby, um, in that famous 1-0 win against your goalkeeper Joe Hart in the most stonewall
Mm.
penalty we've ever seen. Um,
We're not getting
and
into that.
we'll get a nibble one day. Um, but yeah, he went on to Manchester City where he won the league, he won the FA Cup, he won the League Cup. Um, but then ended up going, I think he went on a free to Liverpool at the start of the 2015-16 season. I think he obviously scored against Aston Villa at Anfield the year we got relegated. But his career at Liverpool, when arguably people would have said when he first went there he was past his best, was better than what he ever achieved at Manchester City. He won everything at Liverpool, the Premier League, the Champions League. They must have won a League Cup and an FA Cup. Did he win the? Might not have won the FA Cup, but
At Liverpool,
yeah,
I don't think he did because they
no,
won the FA Cup. Was it Klopp's last season? I think that was the first time he won it.
no,
I
they
think.
did. They did win the FA
Oh
Cup one
no,
year. They
22,
did.
2022, was he still
Yeah,
there?
on
Yeah, I
penalty. They
think
won
he
one on
maybe did.
penalties, didn't they?
Yeah, against Chelsea. Sorry, yeah, sorry.
Yeah. Yeah, even won the Club World Cup as well. And what a fantastic servant he was for Jurgen Klopp and for Liverpool. Played everywhere. I think he played on the wing when they really needed him to. He played mostly in centre mid. I remember him playing at left back in a few games when they had a left back crisis at one point. Became a proper utility player, and he's still going, playing at Brighton in midfield. Unbelievable longevity, a proper model professional, and another Premier League great as well. On the left wing, this one will probably not be a shock at all, is Jack Grealish. I don't think there was any doubt in him. It was just a finding a way of getting him and probably Coutinho into the same team, really. Um, Another player that's still playing, only 29 years of age, won the treble at Manchester City. Um, yeah, he's won a lot of things. Maybe not as good a player as he was when he was with us. I think there's an argument for that. Certainly less effective in that Manchester City team. And I think you can see that, especially given how in the last few international breaks, Lee Carsley has basically given him his Aston Villa role to be a flair player, do whatever you want, go, go where the game takes you. And he scored in two out of three games. I mean, so, you know, he's now won everything there is for him to win at Manchester City. I do hope for him that he maybe moves in the summer just so he can be a great player again. He was a key component of their treble winning season, but his goal and assist tally, and his game is more about goals and assists, and I, of all people, understand that. But his numbers for £100 million player, if I was a Manchester City fan, I'd be a bit underwhelmed, to be perfectly honest. Even though his game is more than just goals and assists. But at Aston Villa, he was unbelievable. Again, we talk about goals and assists. He only scored 29 goals for Aston Villa, but yeah, pretty much single-handedly got us promoted, kept us in the Premier League, and then almost got us a top half finish when we were there. So many unreal memories. Scored a famous goal in this. Scored two goals in the second City derby, but one of them, the away one at St Andrews, will be one of the most famous goals of that fixture ever. Be one of those moments, along with maybe with the Dion Dublin headbutt, something that'll just transcend time. Or the Enkelman Melberg own goal thing. It'd be just one
Yeah.
of those
I prefer
moments
I
of that
prefer to think about
derby.
that.
Yeah, or the Zigic one.
Yes,
Um,
yeah, true.
so yeah, so he makes the team as well. And then striker, I was umming and ahhing about strikers. I didn't know which one to pick. There was a
Yeah,
few to
I
choose
think.
from.
Hmm.
Um, I didn't want to put Dwight Yorke in because I don't remember him playing for Aston Villa, so he was eliminated straight away. Juan Pablo Angel was a decent player, but he wasn't a great striker. Cult hero at Villa, but he wasn't. He didn't have a great career. I thought about Christian Benteke. Obviously, had an amazing 3 year stint at Aston Villa. Had a huge mega money move to Liverpool. Scored an amazing bicycle kick against Man United in that and then had another big money move to Crystal Palace, where he had a couple of really good years before he sort of tailed off and is still going in America. Tammy Abraham, there's a shout for him. Obviously won the Europa Conference League with Roma. Had a good, probably should have been treated a bit better at Chelsea, but he's really struggling at the moment at Milan. And I didn't really want to put Agbon Lahore in the team just because of maybe there were better strikers and he didn't win anything. And despite the second City derby goals and the way his career at Villa ended in the last few years, really isn't befitting of a team like this. So I have gone with Ollie Watkins. So, I mean,
I think
he
you maybe
scored.
do. I think you do Robbie Keane, honestly.
Yeah, Robbie King was another one I was really tempted by as well. Really weirdly we've had a lot of really good strikers that haven't really won anything.
Yeah,
um,
I mean, if it was me, I'd have put Keane in, but it'd be interested to hear
Keane
what
was
you
a good
put.
shout. I think I've gone for Ollie Watkins. Every single season he's played for Aston Villa, he's hit double figures, and well, it was had the most assists in the Premier League last year. Has fired us into the Champions League football. Um, And I think, he had that. He had some high moments for England as well. Scored in his debut. Scored in a Euros semi-final. Almost won the Euros. Maybe if he'd have played the final rather than coming off the bench, you never know. Um, so I have gone with him, and we'll see. Maybe he'll still be in this team in 20 years' time. But I think for right now, out of the options that were available, I think he was a great pick. So yeah, that is my team. Peter Schmeichel, Kyle Walker, Gary Cahill, John Terry, Ashley Young, Gareth Barry, Robert Pires, Philippe Coutinho, James Milner, Jack Grealish, and Ollie Watkins.
Fair enough. And putting you on the spot a bit here, but do you have any honorable mentions? And do you have a manager? We didn't talk about managers.
We didn't talk about managers. I mean, it would be Unai Emery. I think Gerard Houllier would be a pretty good shout as
Julier's a good
well.
shout. Yeah, Julier
But
is a very
Unai
good one.
Emery's won 4 Europa Leagues, I think.
Yeah,
Um,
cool.
won the leagues at PSG and things like that. So I think it has to be him anyway. I have mentioned most of my honorable mentions. So we had Scott Carson as a bit of a great CV without playing a lot of games. His year at Aston Villa, he was rubbish. Emi Martinez, Olaf Melberg, Martin Larsson, Dwight Yorke, Christian Benteke, Gabriel Bodlahor, and Tammy Abraham were my honorable mentions.
Very good. Cool. I'm going to go on to my attackers then. So I'm playing a 4-4-2, so I've only got two strikers. But I mentioned earlier about Alexander Hleb possibly being the most technically skilled person to play for Blues in our lifetime. A lot of people probably argue this man instead, and someone who would, if I had more of a memory of him, would definitely be in the best Blues 11 anyway, sort of since the Blues millennium. Sorry, since in a Blues team since the millennium, I should say. That man obviously is Christophe Dugarry. He was only at Blues briefly, but was an absolute revelation. His goals basically kept us up in 2003. Um, but before his time at Blues, he played for AC Milan. He played for Barcelona, and he actually played 55 times. I think it was for France. He was part of their World Cup winning team in '98. He was part of their Euro 2000 winning team. He also went to I think it was Euro '96 and the 2002 World Cup. An absolute like a superstar world class player landed at Blues in 2003 somehow. He is like the definite another great example of this style of team because what he achieved over his career eclipses basically anyone who's played for Blues in the last 20 years by some distance probably. So Christophe Dugarry easily gets in. And the other one also is a pretty easy choice. And another one that a lot of people forget even played for Blues. Oh, you're gonna
Bernard
do you
Son.
know it's not Bernard's son, no. We need to do something on Bernard's son one day. Try and get him on. It's not Bernard's son, no. Although his time in the German fourth tier did put him in contention. My person, he only scored one goal for Blues. I think he played only 5 or 6 times for us. Any idea who it might be, Cal?
Can you give me a year?
2007. He was on loan.
This is going to be one of those where you say it and I'll be
Yeah.
like, oh yeah, of course.
He's like
Um,
pretty close to world class, if not world class in his day.
I don't know.
Andy Cole.
Oh,
Uh,
of course, yeah, yeah.
Andy Cole came on loan to Blues. I think he was from Portsmouth, maybe. Obviously Andy Cole is like he is a Premier League great as strikers go. He was at Man United, I think, from '95 to 2001.
I was going to say he was definitely part of that '99 Champions League
Yeah,
winning team that
so
we
he
spoke
he
about
won
earlier.
Yeah, he was. He won 5 Premier Leagues, an FA Cup, and a Champions League with Man United. Obviously, he was part of that treble winning team in '99, as you mentioned. I think he played about 30 times for England, give or take. No, it was less than that. I think it was about 50, no, 15 to 20 times. Can't remember exactly off the top of my head. He actually claims he probably should have played more for England, and obviously I don't remember the
Probably.
time, but I would agree, to be honest. Off the top of my head, scored 93 goals and 195 appearances for Man United, and a Premier League great, and then came to Blues towards the tail end of his career. And he only scored 1 goal for us, but it was against Wolves away. We won 3-2. It was right at the end of the season and was a huge goal in getting us promoted, basically. Kind of set us on our way. Great classic game. And yeah, for that moment alone, he's like, I mean, he probably should be held in, should be remembered a little bit more maybe, because a really nice goal where he sort of dinked it over the keeper as well, and did sort of pointed at his name on the back of his shirt, which I thought was, I think so that's quite a nice moment. Yeah, I think it's really cool that he played for Blues at one point in his career. So that is my team. Joe Hart, Steve Finnan, Mario Melchiot, Johan Joru, Dan Burn, Darren Anderton, Michael Carrick, Jude Bellingham, Alexander Hleb, Christophe Dugarry, and Andy Cole. My manager would probably be Harry Redknapp, which is,
Yeah,
I can't, he's just the first one that comes to mind. I remember when he came, it was a huge deal. Obviously, was very widely expected to be the England manager. Within a few years, he was at Blues, and within a year of that, he won I'm a Celebrity. Get me out of here. Um, but some honourable mentions for the Blues, regardless 11. One you've already mentioned, Dwight Yorke. I seriously considered putting in. Um, Played, I think he signed for Blues in 2004. He only scored 1 goal for us, I believe. But obviously, he'd kind of made his name playing obviously for you, and even more so for Man United. Um, Someone who obviously wasn't in our time, as certainly not for Blues, but David Seaman played for Blues in the '80s. I was tempted to put him in, but I feel like Joe Hart was a bit more of a natural fit. Thomas Kuszczak obviously was kind of the backup to Edwin van der Sar for years at Man United, under Sir Alex Ferguson. Technically, as a Champions League winner, and was the Blues keeper for a few years. I think he signed for us in 2015. Saved a penalty in his first game. Ended up getting bombed out of the squad by Gary Monk, along with David Stockdale a few years later, and he actually ended his career at Blues. Chris Sutton obviously was part of the Blackburn team that won the Premier League. Came
I
to
could have had him
Blues
as well,
in,
actually.
yeah, that would have been a good one. Came to Blues when we got relegated again in 2006. Scored 1 goal, was against Villa. Emil Heskey obviously played for England for years, was a very good player for Liverpool. Also was with us when we got relegated in 2006. Kind of think his time at Blues was a bit of a turning point. Another one, I don't think you'd have had him, but maybe could have been
Yeah.
in consideration as well for Villa.
If you want to hear
Nicholas
more
Bender.
about Emil Heskey as well, you can check out our Second City story from last year where we talked about his time at Villa and Blues.
Yeah, absolutely. Really had a really good time doing that episode. Nicholas Bentner was on loan at Blues from Arsenal. Nicky Butt obviously was at Man United in the '90s, part of the class of '92 for Blues. He was awful. Mauro Zarate we had on loan, ended up going to Inter Milan eventually. Kevin Phillips obviously won the Golden Boot, I think, with Sunderland at one point, and came to Blues later in his career and was excellent for us as well. Lee Bowyer had a great Premier League career. Obafemi Martins, obviously, very popular in both Newcastle and Birmingham, absolute club legend. Chris Wood obviously has gone to have a great career. Came to Blues when he was 19 and scored against Club Bruges. Jesse Lingard obviously scored 4 goals in his debut for us. Mikel San Jose, who actually played for Spain and I think went to Euro 2016, was part of our team under Aitor Karanka. Never really quite worked for him, which is a shame because when he got going towards the end of the season under Boye, he actually showed some real ability. But I feel like he's more famous now at Blues for how much he loves Blues.
For
Like
being your
he
hype
just
man, isn't he?
he's a hype man. He just tweets about us constantly. And I love that. I wish he'd stayed longer actually. Yeah, a bit of a cult hero, Mikel San Jose. I remember a lot of excitement when we signed him, but didn't quite work out. Uh, Jermaine Pennant was at Blues and later went. I think we sold him to Liverpool, and he ended up scoring. Sorry, he didn't score, but he played in the Champions League final for them against AC Milan. Um, and then finally, someone who was not going to get in the team, but is an honourable mention, Troy Deeney obviously came to Blues towards the tail end of his career and was definitely not the player he was, but he had a very successful Premier League career at Watford for years, obviously captained them to an FA Cup final. But obviously, we've already talked about the likes of Dugarry, Cole, York. He was nowhere near them across his career. So, yeah, that's my
I saw
team.
Troy Deeney the other week actually at
Oh, yeah.
Wickham Villa for some. I think he must have been doing Five Live or something, but he just loves the
Oh,
Villa
really?
really.
Oh, well, no. If there's one thing we know about Troy Deeney, it's not that he he loves the Villa. Cool. So that's our regardless 11. We hope you enjoyed it, and comment below who had the better team. I think you'll probably say Callum's, unfortunately.
Did we miss
Or
anyone?
yeah, did we miss anyone? Do let us know in the comments.
Right, games coming up. The Premier League and League One are back this weekend.
Mhm.
Are you playing at Saturday 3 o'clock? I think we are.
We are, yeah. We're playing Lincoln City away. We haven't played them in, it's actually, I looked it up in preparation for this. It's just over 20 years. I think it's 20 years last month since we last played them. We played them in the League Cup, and I believe we beat them 3-1. But I have no memory of that, so it's quite a fun one for me to see us play again, a new team. They've actually started really well. They're actually fourth in League One. So yeah, we won't be taking them lightly. Obviously our last league game against Charlton, we lost by all accounts was our worst performance of the season by a mile. But bounced back really well against Shrewsbury in the EFL Trophy the other week. So yeah, I think we'll bounce back and get 3 points there. Obviously unbeaten. Oh no, we are beaten away. Obviously we lost to Charlton. Um, but no, yeah, I'm pretty confident with that one. Um, how about you? Who have you got this weekend?
So we've got a double game week. So we've got Fulham away on Saturday 3 o'clock. Fulham are a really good team. Marcus Silva's building something very, very good there. It's
Mm.
weirdly like a team of like former Arsenal players,
Mm.
for the most part. They look like they lack goals in terms of a number nine. I know Raul Jimenez has had a bit of scored a couple already this year. Rodrigo Muniz has not started how he ended last season. Um, but they're a team we shouldn't take lightly. They obviously battered us the season before last in Steven Gerrard's last game where they beat us 3-0. Um, I think we'll probably win, but I think it'll be close. We only won 2-1 last year, where Ollie Watkins scored a brace. So I could see it being very similar sort of scoreline as a 2-1. Yeah, I'll back us to win that. And then on Tuesday, be either Tuesday or Wednesday, we've got Bologna. I think it's Wednesday. We've got Bologna in the Champions League. I can't go. I'm really quite sad about that, although I'm not disappointed at paying nearly £100 for that ticket. I think unbelievably, it's not going to be a sellout. It's not a surprise with the ticket
Wow.
prices.
Yeah.
But given that we're 2 for 2 without conceding a goal in the Champions League as well, it's a bit of a disgrace really that we're not going to be able to sell that out just because of how ridiculous the ticket prices are. Um, Really important game actually, I think, in our Champions League run. Because I think if we win that, we'll have 9 points. We're in a very, very, very strong position to at the very least get a seeded playoff in the round of 16. So or would it be the round of 32 effectively. But yeah, it'd be the round of 32. So that is really, really important for us. So I back us at Villa Park against most teams, to be honest. So I will predict us to win. I could see a situation where we slip up against Fulham and then get a result against Bologna, but they're no mugs. They are a good team, and if they got a draw or even nicked a win, I don't think it'd be a huge surprise, really. But I will back us to win. We'll say 2-0.
Interesting. You mentioned a game next Tuesday. I actually completely forgot to mention as well. We are also playing next Tuesday. We've got Bolton at home, who are, they're sitting
Oh yeah,
14th.
because we spoke about this last week. They're on at the same time.
Yeah, very odd. I'm very surprised one of them didn't get moved to the Wednesday. I would have thought it'd be easier to move the Blues game, so I'm very surprised they haven't done that. But yeah, Bolton are sitting 14th in League One at the minute, but they have won three of their last four games, so they had a really poor start and are picking up a bit. So yeah, keep tabs on that one. I think a lot of people expected them to be up there this year. So yeah, it looks like they're picking up some steam finally. I just had a little bit of housekeeping before we finish, Cal, on the other team. So in the Football League in the West Midlands. So all in action this weekend. West Brom, I believe, have got Oxford away. Wolves have got Man City at home, and Coventry. Who have Coventry got off the top of my head? I literally just had it here. Coventry are playing Preston away. So interesting ones there. Be very interesting with Wolves as well against Man City and what happens to Gary O'Neill after that. But we also had obviously Blues are going to be in the FA Cup first round for the first time in 30 years this year, and the draw happened on Monday night. We're going to be playing a team we've never played before, and that is Sutton United away, who are currently ninth in the National League. So really looking forward to that. Um, Obviously, I have absolutely no chance of me getting a ticket for it, but that will be in the first week of November. But another really interesting tie in the FA Cup involving a Midlands team. Tamworth are going to be at home to Huddersfield Town. So that's a huge tie for them. Probably be on, you would think would be on TV. So yeah, good luck to Tamworth. Really hope they do well there. Elsewhere, Blues women are currently sitting top of the women's championship. They beat Sheffield United away 2-1 on Friday. Really great to see. I mentioned them last week and that they had a little bit of ground to make up. But it means both Blues women and Blues men are sitting top of their respective leagues at this point in time. So that's really cool as well. And then final note of the episode, Blues have announced basically a scheme with away tickets, which basically is, I assume it is to get around people. Obviously, tickets are in very high demand for away games due to low allocations because we're playing in smaller stadiums this year for the most part. Um, and the club have announced a scheme where when you buy your tickets, you have to pick them up on the day from the away ground with your ID, and they'll give it to you then instead of mailing it out. So the logic is to stop people buying it and then selling them on or giving them to someone else. I can see why they've done it. Bit of a shame. It'll probably affect people like me who, like I'm not a platinum member anywhere near it really, so I'm unlikely to get to too many more away games this year as a result. But I would have thought, unless something changes or if there's some sort of way around it. So I can see why they've done it. I wouldn't be surprised if there's some teething problems at the weekend. But yeah, be interesting to see how that goes. And if anyone's a part of that scheme or is picking their tickets up at Lincoln on the day, and it said from 90 minutes before kickoff, so I can see that being a bit tight for time. Um, but yeah, if anyone is part of that, let me know how it goes. Be interested to see what the fallout is from that.
Seems like a weird scheme to implement like 2 months into the season, but
I,
clearly they feel like they need to do it now because they've either seen some sort of touting or
yeah, it's also the thing like if you're doing it, maybe like well, I was gonna say like maybe just don't shout it about it as well. Like I don't know, ironic from me who's a part of a podcast, a producer of a football podcast. Uh, but yeah, it's a bit of a shame. But hopefully there's ways around it, maybe. But I can see why they've done it as well. So yeah,
right. Shall we wrap it up there this week?
let's wrap it up. Pretty long one this week, but a good one. A good one.
Yeah, the 11's always hit the hour
Run
mark, I
long,
think.
yeah, easily, yeah. But no problem. We'll have a great trip. You're away to Malta, I believe, this week, aren't you? Um,
Yes, I don't know whether we'll get one in until I come back. So I don't know. We might have a week off, possibly.
No worries. We'll see what we can do. But have a great time. And in the meantime, uh, keep right on. Shit on the Villa.
Yeah, make sure to like, share, subscribe on whatever you're watching or listening to us on. Drop your comments, leave your reviews. And yeah, I'll see you next time down and up the Villa.